talk about free markets and why they're so valuable, and why banks and companies should not interfere with the operation of free markets, because they are basically shooting themselves on the foot, even though it doesn't look like that in the beginning. Well, I also like math a lot, and or modeling physical systems, and the good thing about mathematical analysis is that once you write the equations for a certain phenomena, say a projectile is moving in a fluid medium, air or water, might be a rocket, whatever. When you look at the equations, then you can compare these equations to equations that come out if, for example, you wrote the interaction of participants in the stock market. And I have a sneaky feeling that these two sets of equations, they could be similar. Well, when I was taking graduate courses in gas dynamics or fluid dynamics, we were studying in one course shock waves, and shock waves arise in stock markets too, but they don't call it shock waves. They usually call it like flash crash, or economic collapse, or stock market collapse, or well, there are many names that the mathematicians use for shock waves. Another name is called synchrotron. Synchrotron are waves like tsunamis. They're very sharp ingredient or great gradient to a wave. For example, a tsunami, when you get close to the tsunami, the water level suddenly jumps. It's like watching a high cliff, and the speed of the wave also changes very rapidly as you get closer to this gradient. The same goes with the shock waves. Well, shock waves that arise in gas dynamics or fluid dynamics, mostly in gas dynamics, they arise because when a projectile is moving through a medium, okay, the fact that the projectile is moving, this information is transmitted to the flow that's coming to the cone head, okay, at the speed of sound. But if that the projectile or that rocket is going at the speed of sound or greater than the speed of sound, then the information doesn't have a chance to transmit. So the medium just rushes to the cone, but it cannot continue after a certain small boundary at that speed. It has to come to zero speed, because at the surface of the cone or the rocket, the speed is zero, and so there is a shock wave or shock envelope that's in front of the wave. And well, this is a very interesting phenomenon, and the equations for the shock wave are similar to many different phenomena. Okay, so for example, in the stock market, there has to be winners and losers. If there is no winners and losers, the correct information about the stocks, bonds, derivatives does not have a chance to propagate. The same with when a projectile is moving faster than the speed of sound, the information about the speed of the projectile doesn't have a chance to travel ahead of the stream, So the stream comes in and stops, or after the envelope, or a shock wave, it has to stop and it stops. This same thing happens with in the stock market. When an entity, say for example a bank or a certain company, they interfere with the price of a stock, okay, so they're basically doing the same thing. They're creating a shock wave envelope because the correct information about the stock of a company has to have a chance to be transmitted. The participant have to buy and sell this stock freely and exchange the information about the true value of this stock. If the stock is not doing well, if the company is not innovating, the product is old, they have to discount it, or they are basically going out of business. This is information. This information is valuable. It is what gives the stock market meaning. Okay. Now, say for example, a company goes and borrows at a very cheap rate a lot of cash from Federal Reserve and comes in and buys a lot of their own shares back. Okay, so basically what the company is doing is putting out false information about itself. Is telling the market, hey, we are doing so great. Okay, there is this hidden buyer, and he's looking at our company and says, oh my God, they're such a great company. Let me take out my cash out of the savings account or out of a bond that's paying 2.5%, and let me buy this stock right now at market price. Okay, so this is false information. Okay, and say there is a large central bank is doing that, or many companies are doing that. So what happens? This is very similar to when a projectile is moving so fast, it's faster than the speed of sound, is not giving the flow a chance to adjust to itself. So there must be shock waves. Okay, even though many analysts, good analysts like Max Kaiser or Gregory Mannarino, they were traders and they played with the stocks or bought and sold, so they instinctively know, hey, this is rigging the market is wrong. It is going to result in disaster. But that's not a mathematical kind of conclusion. Like what I'm saying right now is a formulation that this is an inevitable part of rigged markets, that there must be discontinuities, there must be shock waves or flash crashes. Okay, or the other thing is that when a projectile is moving in a medium, okay, it's not in a confined control volume. So even though the projectile doesn't let the flow see it that's coming, and there is shock waves now, the shock envelopes, but the information, the total information of the system, that means the shock wave plus the medium plus the flow after the shock wave, this total information or total entropy has to be a constant. The same goes with the stock market. When central bank or given company, they modify the entropy of the system, okay, of the immediate surrounding to themselves, like they artificially jack up their own price, okay, but that doesn't mean that the total entropy of the system changed. It didn't. The total entropy stayed the same, and then that means that uh, the the shock wave not only has to exist, but also it becomes the system. It means that the stock market becomes very choppy, massive volatilities, because the participants, they are unable to immediately gauge the value of a given stock. They're like making going through shock waves. They buy at a price, then they say, hey, there's something wrong, and then the price suddenly drops, and then suddenly comes back up again because the company did something else, or the Federal Reserve did something else. The price becomes subject to volatility and discontinuities. Okay, so this is one of the ways that we can look at it as mathematically, but a lot of good traders, they know this, but they have their own little gauges, like VIX, and they explain it, but there is a mathematics behind this sudden movements. So the Kaiser report says that the stock market goes up steps and then drops off from the elevator shaft. Okay, so this is a shock wave. This is a discontinuity. There is a lot of good that can come out from studying synchrotrons or tsunamis, or what their dynamics is, or how their mathematics is, and but I think that there is a total gauge or total entropy of the system. When a projectile or a company it modifies this entropy around itself, then this entropy has to become magnified for the whole system. It doesn't change totally, it just goes through shocks to come to a lower entropy around that particular stock or system. Now, some of this stuff is you need to do a little math or know some of these systems. I don't have a whole lot more on this subject because I'm not a trader. I just like studying economic processes, and I think that at some point, like many of these analysts say, because the total entropy of the system has become so great, the entropy around like U.S. stock market might be very low because the Federal Reserve or the companies, they have all this cash that they're burning and keeping things the nice price and orderly, but the total depth has increased, the total entropy has increased, and then at some point it will become a shock wave or flash crash or economic collapse. And it's strange how many analysts, they come out and they know that this is going to happen today or tomorrow or 2 months down the road, but people just keep going and doing the same stuff. Well, thank you for being in my YouTube channel. Please subscribe, okay? Bye-bye.